Greetings to you all. A while ago, I made a statement that said, before you get married, make sure you have the capacity to deal with great disappointments. For example, being cheated on. Now, the statement went viral, and most of the time when that happens, it has to do with a number of people who are either opposed or who just did not understand what I was saying. In fact, the extent to which the statement was misunderstood was worrying, was concerning to me. Some were arguing that I'm condoning infidelity. Some even go as far as saying that I'm encouraging infidelity. I just don't know. Particularly, the truth is, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Oftentimes, we read things, but we read into things based on where we are in life and our experiences. So we do understand. Now, let me take this time to explain this very simple statement and why I said something like that. It must be understood that it has got nothing with condoning infidelity, neither does it have anything to do with encouraging infidelity. Now, one of the things that I've done in my premarital counseling is to include issues around infidelity. So if one understood my message was more about preparedness that is required when you enter marriage, I think the challenge we have is that most of us, when we enter marriage, we have got the ideal view. In fact, somebody says when we get married, we think our partners and we put our partners as the ideal. That's what we think it is. And when we are in marriage, the ideal becomes an ordeal. And soon thereafter, you want a new deal. But let's go back to the point that I was making here and explaining the context of this particular statement. Having a capacity to deal with whatever it is that happens in life, whether, as in this case, I was talking about capacity to deal with disappointments. You are not in any way encouraging people to cheat or condoning those who cheat. Is to say, enter into marriage with an understanding that you are marrying a sinner. In fact, one writer says, the greatest surprise in marriage should not have been a surprise at all, because the greatest surprise in marriage is that you are married to a sinner. Which is that before marriage, we don't know what kind of a sinner I am marrying. And as soon as you find the kind of sinner that you are married to, you want to leave them, divorce them, and go and look for another sinner that you don't know the kind of sinner that they might be. So it is important, therefore, to realize that there are people who, when disappointments comes in marriage, they struggle to be able to cope with disappointment. I know of people who, because they were cheated on in marriage, either committed suicide, others became depressed and lost their minds, others went on to kill people or the partners in so regard. So, and I want us to be aware, to understand disappointments, to understand challenges in marriage, including the idea of infidelity. If we have to put infidelity within its context, we need to realize that infidelity is not a marital problem, but a spiritual problem. It would have been a marital problem if it was your spouse who said, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." But it is not your spouse who said, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." It is God who said so. And we don't even know why he said so. We can speculate why he said so. We do know that infidelity is the most devastating event, that emotional event that can ever happen in marriage or in a relationship, second only to the death of a spouse. So from that we can deduce that the reason God took it personal to create a law that says "Thou shalt not commit adultery" is because he knew the impact that it will have on us, this most devastating impact that it has. So he created a wall to say, you are only going to hurt the other person. If you're going to hurt the other person, you must go through me. That's why he created a seventh commandment that says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." Now, so from that we need to understand that infidelity, people when they commit adultery, they are not trying to hurt their spouses. They are trying to hurt God, who says, "Thou shalt not." When people commit adultery, they are lifting a middle finger to God, and they are saying to God, "We don't obey you, we don't obey your instruction, you are not our God, we do what we like, we do what we feel like doing, so leave us alone." So it's an attack on God. Your spouse becomes a casualty of one's attack on God. It becomes a casualty of the attack that one is making on God. Now, having that understood, it is therefore important for us to therefore realize that when you therefore when somebody falls into adultery, we say they were being cheated on. They're actually not cheating on you, they're cheating on God. They are disrespecting God. And oftentimes people will ask themselves, what does the other person have that I don't have? Is it because she's a yellow bone, she's a chocolate bone, she's a dark chocolate bone? Why? What does the other person have? If it's a man, is it because he has more money, he's tall, dark, and handsome? What is it that will make you to leave me? Because we personalize it, and that's why we say we are being cheated on. But let me say that even if you are an angel, if somebody does not fear God, they will still cheat on you. So the idea, it has nothing to do with you. Don't stress yourself. It's above your pay grade. It is about somebody who does not fear God. If somebody does not fear God, who are you as a human being? You know, so don't depress yourself, and understand infidelity within that view that it's a spiritual problem. If the person is not fearing God, no matter what you can do, whatever you can do for this person. I was listening to a man after being cheated on. I was reading somewhere, he says, "I gave you the world, I had given her everything, but she still..." No, it is about a God who actually has given us everything. The life that we have, the oxygen that we need, even to commit adultery, the legs to stand on, the strength to move our bodies around and to do whatever many positions that we have in adultery. It is that God that we do not fear. And therefore it is important for us to realize that it's above your pay grade, and it's not an attack on you. It's you're not being cheated on. In fact, we understanding that context, you should be able to say, why are you doing this to God? After all that he has done for you, why are you disrespecting God in this way? So that's one thing that we need to understand. And therefore, the message was clear. I don't want to see you tomorrow when something like this have happened, and therefore you collapse, you get depressed, you kill people, you kill yourself, you kill your children, and all of those things. So whilst you pray that it never happens to anybody, if the statistics that is anything to go by, where there is 60 to 70% of relationships will have infidelity, that means the majority of those who are listening to my voice, if they're married, 6 or 7 out of 10 of them will be cheated on. Some will never find out. Some will find out on the funeral day that there are some children who looks like their father, and others, men will die without knowing that the paternity test of 3 of their 4 children is not them. It's not. They are not the father. If the test had to be done, so it is therefore important for us to realize that. Having the capacity does not mean you must go ahead and cheat on your partner. Having the capacity does not mean that you must, the other person must go ahead and do this. No, it's still a devastating thing. As I said, it's still a relationship with God, not with you. As we already said, and it was best put clearly by the cartoon that it was a picture that I saw on social media of a huge Nigerian soldier with all the guns in all places, and there's a woman next to him, and the caption said, if women will cheat on soldiers that have got guns, what about you and your laptop? And it is a sad reality, and many of the people who were challenged and they were very emotional about this statement because of their misunderstanding were women, because infidelity seems to be a man's problem, but not anymore. I was with a psychologist at another seminar, and she was telling me, she was sharing one statistic that shows that infidelity among young married women is now higher than that among young married men. Of course, men who are middle-aged to older men, it is still very high in that regard, and middle-aged women and probably older women are not so much into that. So it is a problem that we have. It's a societal problem. It's a sin problem. Sin does not discriminate in terms of gender in this regard. So, and that is important. Another issue that we enter into marriage and people don't want to hear about the idea of having a capacity to deal with the problem. It is the same for people, many of them, who are sleeping together outside marriage. The same people who are doing fornication. And some people who are, some of them are already living together before marriage. So in their relationship, they do not believe that, they do not observe the 7th commandment, which says thou shalt not. And this is what they're doing before marriage. But suddenly in marriage, there is an expectation that things must change drastically. There's an expectation that if you never had self-control before marriage, where will you get self-control in marriage? There is no salvation in marriage. Salvation is in Jesus Christ. If you ignore him and you're sleeping with your partner, with your boyfriend or girlfriend before marriage, you are saying, you are writing an alliance that as far as our relationship is concerned, the 7th commandment does not matter to us. So we live our life as if the 7th commandment does not matter. That's all that we're saying. And suddenly, when that very person you have taught to cheat, or you have practiced breaking the 7th commandment with, is now married to you, you expect them, no, now to become faithful. It's just that sometimes we fail to realize, we think there is something called faithfulness in the midst of unfaithfulness. Somehow we think that this can be just our sin because we're going to get married. God will understand it's just a sin between us. No, you're ironing your conscience. You're ironing the conscience of your girlfriend or whoever to say that commandment does not matter. And after you've ironed that conscience, and it does no longer respond, now you get into marriage and you want to kill somebody for cheating, for the same thing that you've taught them and you've practiced with them. I always say to my couples who come for premarital counseling that if they're sexually active, they mustn't come back to me in marriage and say this one is cheating on me or whatever. No. Because you have already made the alliance before marriage that God's word does not matter when it comes to that. So I'm not interested in those issues. Come back with other problems that the person is not buying maize meal, or is not buying veggie burgers, or is not buying steak, or whatever things that you eat, or other problems, but not that which you are creating yourself before marriage. So, and that was the basis. The basis is that the reality is that we have a lot of people who don't fear God. And the issue of infidelity is directly related to the lack of fear of God. And some of these people, we marry them knowing that they don't fear God. We marry them knowing exactly that they violate God's instruction. Now, you want to come there unready for that? I was talking to a pastor, a senior pastor, and I was saying to him, more than 60% of people that I conduct their marriages as a marriage officer, they are already cohabiting. And his response to me was, with him, it's almost 100%. They are cohabiting. So these are the people who don't fear God, who don't care about what God has to say. And suddenly, in marriage, they must start caring. Suddenly, that's madness. That's madness. If you see, self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, and if it is not there before marriage, faithfulness, the fruit of the Spirit, if it is not there before marriage, and you claim to be saved, then it won't be there. As I said, there's no salvation in marriage. It is only in Jesus. So that was the point. The point I was trying to make is not encourage people to sin. It's just to say, no, don't kill yourself. Don't get depressed just because this thing has happened and this disappointment has happened. Come there with the capacity to deal with that, because 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, it will happen to all of those who are getting married. So we can tell you that it will never happen, but statistics are telling us that it's the other way around. So if you're planning to get married, you're more likely to be cheated on. So get there with the capacity. And the capacity I'm talking about is the ability to forgive, the ability to seek counseling and deal with these issues that has come, and because they will come. If the Lord does not tarry, or if you're not part of the other 40 or 30% where infidelity does not happen. That's all I wanted to expand on. May the Lord bless you and keep you, even as we continue to minister from under the mango tree.